Welcome to the Rewrite Your Life Story podcast, hosted by your favourite duo, Stephen and Charlene. They're here to help you transform your mindset and create a positive outlook on life. Are you tired of feeling stuck and unfulfilled? Are you ready to take control of your thoughts and emotions and rewrite your story? Well, you're in the right place. They will be sharing inspiring stories, practical tips, and expert advice to help you on your journey to a better you. You'll learn how to let go of negative self-talk, embrace your strengths, and focus on the good things in life. Each episode will be joined by amazing guests who have rewritten their own life stories and are now living their best lives. From successful entrepreneurs to accomplished athletes, we'll bring you stories of resilience, courage, and triumph. So grab a cup of coffee, get cozy, and get ready to be inspired. Tune in every week for a new episode of the Rewrite Your Life Story podcast. Let's rewrite our stories together and make every day count.
In this episode, we interview Judith Keys, who's the owner of My Food in France Ltd, where she runs a paid cookery membership, holds interactive online cook-along classes for teams and individuals, and will soon be organising retreats close to her home in France. Join us as we delve into her story.
Before we get started, we want to remind you that the information presented in this podcast is for educational and informational purposes only. The views and opinions expressed by the hosts and their guests are their own and do not represent the views of any organisation or entity. Additionally, any information presented should not be taken as legal, medical, or financial advice. Always consult with a licensed professional in the respective field for any advice or guidance. Now that we've got that out of the way, let's dive into today's topic and learn how to transform our lives through positive thinking and taking control of our stories. Thanks for joining us.
Before we begin, we want to give you a heads up. We may be discussing some sensitive and personal topics that might bring up some strong emotions or discomfort. Our goal is to create a safe and supportive space, but we know that everyone's experiences and triggers are different. If you start feeling overwhelmed or triggered during an episode, remember to prioritize your well-being. It's totally okay to hit pause and take a break. Your self-care is important, and looking after your mental and emotional health should always come first. If you ever need extra support, we encourage you to reach out to a mental health professional or someone you trust. You're not alone, and there are resources available to help you on your personal journey. Thank you for joining us on this incredible ride with the Rewrite Your Life Story podcast. Together we'll navigate life's challenges and rewrite our narratives with strength and resilience.
Hey everyone, it's Stephen and Charlene, and welcome to another episode
welcome.
of the Rewrite Your Life Story podcast. And today I'm super excited. We have Judith Keys, who is joining us from Provence, France, who is originally from Belfast, but totally changed her life. And I'm so excited to dive into her story. So Judith, tell us about Northern Ireland, Belfast, and growing up, and what made you make this life-altering decision?
Hi, thank you so much, by the way, for having me on the podcast. I'm excited too. So I have made a couple of big changes. The first one being to move from Northern Ireland to Scotland for my studies when I was time to go to university. I wanted to get out of Northern Ireland. I mean, I don't know whether you know the background, but there was a lot of political upheaval and war, for all intents and purposes, going on when I was a kid. And I was lucky in that I didn't see much of that, but it was just a constant on the news. It was just something that we all lived through. And it seems crazy when I think of that now, that was just part of our lives. We just all lived through that, and it was just bonkers. So Northern Ireland is also a very small place, and I think I wanted to get away from that sort of insular, everybody knows everybody type thing. Everybody's commenting on what other people are doing and all that. So, there was that vibe as well. And I just wanted to change, I think. It just was really important for me to do something a bit different. And the university that I chose was in Edinburgh in Scotland, and it had the best languages degree. And that's what I wanted to do. So the French connection started very early because we always came on holiday to France when I was a kid. My dad's a French teacher, so there was all that going on in the background. And Yeah, I did French and Spanish, and I did interpreting and translating degree. So it was just really fun and interesting and useful as well. It wasn't studying lots of literature and all that type of thing. I wanted it to be more practical. So I loved that side of it. We learned how to do simultaneous interpreting. So it was really cool. We did translation, lots of stuff. So that was the first sort of big move. And I spent probably 10 years, I think, in Scotland. I ended up working there and I loved it. And I still miss it very, very much. It's a very special place for me. And then, yeah, I was working. I didn't really do anything with my languages degree until now that I live in France. Obviously, I speak French all the time, but it's such a shame, yeah, because I just got into a job as soon as I finished university just to start getting money and to be able to have my own place and that type of thing. So I started working in a law firm. I got a temporary job there as a secretary, started off, and then they hired me permanently, and then I became a manager and I sort of worked my way up. It was fine for the first few years and I enjoyed it. And then I started to see, so I think this is where it became a problematic for me. I started to see all the lawyers move up and like go from being trainees to solicitors to associates to partners to whatever. And I hit the management position and I couldn't go any further. It
Right.
was like, oh, this is it now. Unless I go and train to be a lawyer, which I didn't want to do. So I watched all that happen, and also the corporate environment just started to get really difficult. It all was around 2008 when when the whole crash happened, the financial crash. So there was just money saving going on all the time, and which is I can understand that, but it just became really difficult. We lost lots of colleagues who were laid off and things, and there was just a lot of stuff that I didn't really like. And whilst I can understand why they have to do all that, it just became a bit of an excuse in the end. I was there and there's just still no salary increase, still no salary increase still year on year. Whereas all the lawyers, I'm sure, we're getting their increase every year. It just started to just feel really icky. I didn't like it anymore. And it's so strange though, because I thought, oh, I have to do the right thing. I'm in this good job. I should buy a house and I need to do all the right things and what society tells us to do. So I did. I bought my own house. And that was the moment. That was the moment for me that made me realize I need to change. It sounds so crazy, but buying a house was like, what have I done? I don't want to. It was like the commitment, like, no, that this is too scary. I know I have a house. This means I have a mortgage to pay. I'm in this. This is my life now. And I just thought, no, I don't want this. I need to get out. I just had a total freak out. And yeah, so the choice to move to France was a sort of easy one. It sounds crazy and like, oh my God, how did you end up there? But my parents had retired here. France has been a love affair of my dad's since he was a young boy, so he just loved it. So they had retired here. My sister had moved here with her husband. So everybody was sort of here. I was actually the last one. I was the only one still back in the UK. So I just thought, well, I'll try it for a while. I'll go and see what it's like. And then here we are, 10 years later. I'm still here.
Right.
So yeah.
Wow,
Yeah.
it's quite the adventure.
Yeah, quite the adventure. So what made you choose that particular part of France? Have you always been in that part of France?
We'd holidayed all over France, but my dad, as a French teacher, he had assistants who came every year from France to be in his school in Northern Ireland, and they would speak to the kids in French. And it was like, I'm sure that happens where you guys are as well. There'll be people come to, yeah, French assistants is what we would call it where I'm from. But yeah, so we got really friendly with this one particular French assistant, and she said, oh, come and visit. The next time you come to France, come and visit where we live. And it was this little part of Provence that we didn't know. And we thought, well, yeah, let's go there. And my dad just completely fell in love with this place. So at first it was a holiday home for my parents as well. They just bought it and then they decided to take early retirement here. We all just sort of fell in love with it. We got to know it. We got to know the people here. And yeah, it just became a sort of whole family love story in the end. And yeah, when I wanted to move, I did feel like it was a bit of a buffer, it wasn't too crazy a change because I did have family. I did have a little bit of a safety net. But as soon as I came here, I stayed with my parents for a while, but I was 30. I was like, no, quick. I need to like find a job and get out of here. So, which I did that quite quickly. Yeah.
So let me ask you, you've got children now and a family and a young family. Is your partner French?
Yeah, yeah, my husband's French
Yeah.
and he's amazing. We have two little boys, six. I can't believe the eldest is six now, but yeah, 6 and 2. So it is crazy. And we've just got a puppy as well because we thought we're a bit bored at home with all this going on. Let's add a puppy into the mix. So she's been very good actually. I'm a little bit worried about her starting to make noise, but she's sleeping, so we're fine.
So obviously you're quite settled in France now, and you've learnt the French language, which was prior to France, you moving to France. But then you start a culinary cooking school camps experience. That's quite different, and
Yeah.
different for the fact that you're promoting French cuisine, but that is something not native to you as well. Tell us about that.
So that was another big leap for me. I think I get a bit bored when I'm doing the same thing for a while. And I have this creative side of me. The cooking and baking thing has always been a thread throughout my life as well, a bit like the French thing, because I've always cooked and baked. It was my grandmother who taught me. I remember I still have these amazing memories, time with her and her showing me how to make scones and shortbread and lots of traditional Irish things. And I think when I moved here, I started out working as a VA. So because I had the sort of secretarial and managerial skills from when I worked in the UK, I needed to find something that I could do here easily. So I started out as a VA, virtual assistant, and an OBM, online business manager. So I did lots of the clients from home, from the UK, and did, admin and marketing for them and really enjoyed it. So it was a really successful business. And I was doing that, and it came to, I was pregnant with my youngest little boy. And I think it was another one of those realization moments of I'm doing the same thing again. It's like I'm back at a corporate job. I'm at a desk every day. I live in this beautiful place in the south of France with all this amazing produce, and we live in the middle of nowhere. The countryside is just gorgeous all around us. And I am at a desk every day, back to sort of corporate world again. And I'd done it myself. I'm not at all ungrateful for that because I still have that business and I still have quite a few clients who have been with me since the beginning. I absolutely am so grateful for that. And I love my clients, and it's just been fantastic. But it was that time off when I was pregnant and then when I had my little boy that I just thought, right, the foodie thing is still there. It's like knocking on the door. It needed to come out and wanted to try and do something with it. So having the time off was great because I was able to allow it to come. Like, what am I going to do with this? How can I make it work? And in France, doing anything with food or cookery here is very, very difficult. You need to have lots of qualifications and it takes ages and you need to invest an awful lot in time and money. And I just didn't have that time or money. So I thought, right, how can I do this? And I thought, well, I could do it online, so the same as with the VA stuff. I can help people online. I can do classes online. I can create a sort of way to connect through food online. Let's do it. And I can talk about French food and I can talk about all the amazing produce we have here and the food that I eat. And, my French family teach me so much about the cuisine here. And I just have it all around me. I speak to producers and local farmers, and there's our amazing markets here. We have farmers markets every day in a different place around us. So it just felt like it was something that I could take that passion that I have, I suppose, and find a way of sharing it with other people and make it into a business as well. So yeah, it's now turned into my food in France, and I love it. I have a cookery membership. So there's people in there with me and we talk about food all the time, and we have a cookery class once a month and I share recipes in there and interviews with local producers and local foodie people that I know. And I just love it. It's like a creative outlet for me and also a way of connecting through food. I think this is what keeps coming up to me. It's such an amazing thing. When I work with people online, you sort of think, how can that work? We're both cooking in a different place, but it's amazing how it still is. We finish off the end of the class and they've got this amazing dish, and so do I. And then they're really proud, and we've had an amazing conversation throughout. And they're asking me questions. And yeah, it's just such a beautiful experience, which I can't believe how well it works online. I wasn't sure it would, but it really does.
That's pretty unique,
Yeah.
like you're doing virtual cooking classes from the middle of France. Can I just ask geographically, where are some of your members from?
So some of my members, they started out as American citizens. They still are American citizens, but they've moved to France. It's amazing. I've got two women in the membership who have moved, who have done the transition that I did, and actually they now live in France. Not because of me. It was on the cards anyway. It was on the cards. They had it. I've got a lady in Spain. I've got a guy in Scotland. Mainly the rest of the members are UK based. But yeah, it's just fantastic.
It's really interesting. Going back to your family for a moment, a couple of questions that are just going through my mind. You speak, like, as we said, you established, you spoke French before you went to France. Did you feel that was sufficient for you to get by, or did you feel that you had to polish up more to become more fluent? What was that experience of actually being immersed in the culture now?
It was really, really tough for
Yeah.
me. Yeah. And I think I have to be honest about this because, yeah, I had a master's in French and I'd been to France loads. But until you're here speaking it all the time, I had such a rubbish level of conversational French, which sounds crazy, but you're learning it on paper. You're not really talking French all the time. Obviously, I had some time abroad during my degree, but it's just not the same. You really do need to be in a place, I think. This is what I've learned. I need to be here and speaking it all the time um, to really get that level of fluency. And obviously, I live with a Frenchman, so that helps as well. But the first couple of years here were really hard for me. I'm such a talkative person. I love that. I love connecting with people and just, I really lost a sense of myself in
Wow.
French because I couldn't be myself. I couldn't talk the way I would speak normally. So it was really hard and I felt quite isolated. And I think that's something we need to be really open about for people who change countries. So, I mean, I'm so privileged in that I spoke a little bit of French already and it was my choice to come here. But it just makes me think of so many people who are displaced or who move for various other terrible reasons and who are left in the middle of this new place, not being able to communicate. It's such a tough time. And I was in this sort of dream place that I wanted to be in, and it was still really hard. So now it's completely different. I mean, I am so fluent. I feel completely at ease. I pretty much understand everything. The only thing I don't like doing is watching films in French because it's like I want to have fun. I want to just sit down and watch a film and switch off. And when you watch a film in French, I still have to think a little bit. I have to
Yeah,
try and I
yeah.
can't pick up everything. It's a bit like work. So I'm like, nah, I just want to watch it in English.
Did I tell
Awesome.
you? I understand that because I refuse to watch films with subtitles because I'm like, I don't want to read while I'm watching a movie.
I
So
want that to work.
I don't want to work. So I get that. I get that.
Let's just ask Judith, did you find when you first moved over and like even though you did have that master's in French that people were generally helpful, like in helping you to be able to learn like the conversational and willing to listen to you or talk to you?
It depended on the person, really. I do think there's so many people who were, yeah, kind and lovely to me. And then there's just people who don't have the patience or they're not interested or whatever. So it was a mixed bag. But I really do think it had to come from me because I had such a confidence issue. I think I'm a total perfectionist. So if I couldn't say the exact right thing, I didn't want to say it at all. I was so scared of making a mistake, I wish I were different, but I'm not. I know that's what I'm like. That was so hard for me to just let go and just talk. And it wasn't until I was pregnant with my first boy that I just had to do it. I had to phone and make appointments. That was so tough. Snotty French receptionists are not nice. I will say that. I had lots of really
Yeah.
difficult times on the phone. It was really hard because at least when you're in front of somebody, you can smile and you can see their mouths move and it's much easier to understand. But on the phone, it's a whole other ball game. But I was forced into it. I had to make lots of hospital appointments and midwife appointments and scan things. And, so I just really do credit to my first boy with helping me feel more integrated here. He didn't do it on purpose, but it's what really changed things for me, I think, because I was just sort of thrown into it. Because it was for him, I did it, whereas I don't know if I would have been, so maybe I would have hidden in my shell a bit longer.
That's so beautiful.
You had a purpose, and that was
Yeah.
just amazing that you allowed that to be your reason to step out.
Yeah. Do your children, obviously your 2-year-old, developing his language skills now, but your 6-year-old, is he bilingual?
Yeah, they both are. It's unbelievable.
Wow.
Even the little one speaks now and will say things in both languages and understands. I can't believe how much he understands in English. So when I say go and put that in the fridge or something, he goes and puts it in the fridge. I can't believe it. I'm like, wow, you're only 2. He understands it. And yeah, my eldest, he's bilingual. Yeah, I mean, he has a French accent when he speaks English, which is so fun for me because I speak to him with my accent. So I don't know why that happens, but yeah, it's just, I'm amazed.
Does your husband speak English?
This is a touchy subject. Not really. Not
Okay.
really, no. I mean, he can do a lot better than he thinks.
Yeah.
But I think he must have that. I think he probably has that same thing that I did when I first came here, that confidence issue. And he doesn't have to do it. So he doesn't, because when we're here as a family together at the dinner table, for example, I will speak in French because I want it to be easy and us the conversation to flow. And if I move into English, then he maybe won't understand everything and it becomes a little bit more disjointed.
What
So
happens when your mum and dad are over and your sister are over and the partners are over? Is that English? Is that French?
English, yeah, just full English. Then he just has to just sit back and it's such a strange thing. The whole cultural thing is such a bit of a minefield, because I feel like we're so surrounded by French culture. My eldest in a French school, obviously, and so I'm really mindful of making sure that they see my culture as well. It's such an interesting thing. I really want them to watch TV programs that I watched or, new stuff from home or, I want to read him books in English and I'm quite careful about making sure that I only read in English to him and it's his dad that reads in French. And it's really important for me whether I can try and influence that a little bit, but there's things that he'll like and
It sounds like you've got a really good balance.
I hope so.
Sounds like that, like if you bring the English and your husband brings the French and then they've got the surroundings. And obviously they've got their grandmother and grandfather there, and there's quite a lot of English influence there. Back to your cooking, because this is about cooking. From passion, you go to business. What was the hardest thing from moving from a passion to a business? Because a lot of people have passions, but they never make that leap.
And it stays as a hobby.
Or it just stays as that thing that they do on the side. You had a passion for cooking, even though it was, your grandmother's influence and it was more Irish and English food. You still got the skills you needed. You developed the culinary skills you needed, learnt the French, you learnt the produce, you learnt everything, and then you took that passion. But I would say what's so unique about you is, if I can say, well, I don't feel that you're a foreigner in France anymore because you live there, you've embraced that, but probably seen as a non-French person cooking French cuisine. So there was probably a lot of barriers there for you. How did you move your passion to a business and how did you overcome those barriers?
The passion to business thing, I think, felt more scary than it was in the end. So I spoke with a friend of mine a lot who's a business mentor, I'll say, and I chatted with her. And I think she really helped me because she just said, just try it. What can go wrong? Just try it and see. And I think I was probably my biggest barrier because I was going from marketing a VA OBM business, very much administrative desk job, to something so wildly different that I thought, oh my God, people are going to just think, what is she doing? Who does she think she is? What is happening? So I was concentrating on that and thinking, what am I going to do? And she just said, just do it and see what happens. I'm aware as well that I had the buffer of my other business. So it wasn't just a complete change. Again, it was sort of, right, I'll try it and see what happens. So I had that. But I think that's what I would say to anybody thinking of doing this is it doesn't have to be a big deal, actually. I just thought, well, let's see what happens. I'll put a sales post out and say, I'm doing this class. Do you want to come? That's how it doesn't need to be, I'm going to do a whole new business and I'm going to do a whole new website. I need to get all this in place. Actually, what all you really need to do is say, I've got this thing. Is anybody interested? So that would be my best piece of advice. Say if any of your listeners are thinking, I'd love to turn my passion into a business, just try it, give it a go if you can. Obviously, there's certain businesses where you do need to put things in place, but this was an easy one. I got the legal stuff, my insurance was it. So I obviously needed terms and conditions and things. I wanted to make sure I had it all properly done in that sense. But that was just a quick conversation with somebody who said, right, what is it you need? Yep, tick the boxes. Okay, give it a go. Just try it. And I think probably another barrier for me is I got a little bit worried about it becoming like it wouldn't be a passion anymore if I made it a business. Like, would it become boring or would it become stressful?
Good
Or,
point.
you want to do this thing as a passion, then you think, oh, I have to do this class again. Oh, God, I have to get the equipment set up. And that is not the case at all. Like, I love doing the classes, they are so fun. I'm getting to do the thing that I love, but sharing it with other people, like that is just so cool. So sometimes I'm a little bit like, oh God, I get a bit stressed and hope that it all goes okay. But in it and doing it, it just is total flow and ease and fun and and connection with brilliant people who are wanting to do the same thing. So it doesn't have to be for people who are amazing at cooking. I'm not saying it's a cookery class either. Like, I don't think it would be for complete newbies either, but somewhere in between. Like, if you're interested in good food and interested in learning some new dishes, then come along. It's really good fun.
Okay, so I'm coming along. What can I expect? Take me from appetizer right through dessert. What will you cook?
So in a class, normally we do 1 or 2 dishes maximum. And we'll usually always do something quite seasonal. So I have to be mindful of that when I'm deciding what the class will be each month. Because we are based in different places, something could be seasonal for me and not seasonal for someone back in the UK. So I do try and sort of make sure that it's suitable for everybody. But I do try and make it French. Maybe it'll be a bit of a twist or it'll be something from my childhood that I've cooked for French people, but generally I try and make it French. And we'll always do something seasonal. So, but what we're going to do this month is one of the top 10 favorite French dishes, which is unbelievable because it's a Moroccan dish. It's a couscous or a tagine. It always comes up in the top 2 or 3 favorite dishes in France every year. And it is something that I absolutely love to cook and is not really known about it. Obviously, tagine, people cook that quite often, but a French couscous, when you go, they call it couscous, the whole dish. So not just the grain. The whole dish is called couscous. It's like a big, beautiful meat vegetable stew with gorgeous Moroccan flavours. So that's what we're going to do this month. Last month, though, I know what we did for dessert. We did île flottante. I don't know if you've heard of île flottante. Île flottante is a gorgeous classic French dessert. The translation is floating islands. So they are little meringue islands floating, beautiful vanilla, like a thin vanilla custard underneath with some caramel on top and little flaked almonds over it. It's absolutely gorgeous. It sounds quite difficult to do, but everybody on the class did it and it turned out amazing because we're doing it together, step by step, using really simple ingredients. So for that dessert, it's literally eggs and sugar and milk, I think, is all that's in it, like 3 ingredients, and got this absolutely beautiful. Oh my goodness, it's so beautiful. And the taste. So yeah.
I was like, I want to watch the reruns.
So yes, that's a good point actually, because what I do is I record all the classes and anybody's in the membership, if they can't come along to the class, all the recordings go into the vault, plus all the recipe cards, plus all the interviews and everything is all in the vault. So if you come along and join the membership, you get access to all of the past stuff as well.
Very clever.
Yeah. Where do you see this going in the future?
Oh my goodness. I'd love to have like 100 people cooking along with me all at the same time, all over the world, joining from everywhere. That would be amazing. I just want to grow it. I feel like there is so much potential. It isn't where I would like it to be at this moment, I have to be honest. I've got a small family. It's really hard to do everything. I still have my other business, priorities with my clients. If I could just drop everything, I would put my all into it and grow it so fast if I could. But yeah, I just hope that in the next couple of years, once my youngest is at school and things are a little bit more settled, because having a tornado 2-year-old in the house is it's quite difficult. But yeah, I can't wait to grow it more, and I'd love to eventually. So I talk about doing retreats. We haven't done one yet, but that is the next addition. So I'd love to have people come, just a really small group, and I would take them around our local markets. We'd do tastings of local produce, take them to farms, stay in an absolutely gorgeous place. So I've already got,
Please put us on that
hopefully,
waiting list.
I would love to have you. Yeah. And we'll do like maybe some wine tasting and things. So I mean, it's all just here. So that would just be so amazing for me. That's the next step. Yeah.
Judith, I've got a couple of questions that's just burning in my mind at the moment. You mentioned one that you had a favorite traditional Irish dish that you just make into French. Tell me, how do you turn something into French cooking?
So I would say something like an Irish stew is a good example, where you can take something that is typically Irish, but maybe add French veg instead, or instead of, so we have a really traditional Irish dish. Well, it's traditional now, but it's a beef and Guinness stew. And I would maybe just change that into more of a French thing with some red wine instead of the Guinness. So make it more of like a boeuf bourguignon, something more classic like that. My husband is not into sweet things in savory recipes. So I can't think of an example, but a lot of curries that I would make and things like that, I suppose they're not traditionally Irish at all. But just thinking we have such a diverse cuisine at home. I think when you're a small island, so the UK and Ireland have so many influences from everywhere. So there is a huge Indian and Pakistani influence and Bengali influence where I lived in Northern Ireland. So we did make curries, and we would often make them with raisins in there or apricots in there, that type of thing. And I come here and I have to change that a little bit. My French family they don't understand that. Why would you put something sweet? He says that, and then I think, well, you do have like duck à l'orange, there's lots of French dishes where there's sweet stuff. So anyway, I would encourage anybody to adapt. If you have a French recipe that you love, but there's something in it that you don't like, have a think about what else you could put in, or add herbs that you like, give it a go. And my main thing is, I think, I'm a cook, I'm not a chef. I'm not making these perfect little pastries or perfect French patisserie, or I want it to be accessible. I want it to be simple ingredients. I want it to be something that you can do with your kids, or something that can impress your partner or something, but that it's simple and it doesn't take hours of prep. That is so important to me, that it's more about the connection through food and the let's make a big beautiful dish that is easy but tasty, and
that sounds amazing.
that's just so important. Yeah.
So the other thing I had on my mind was a lot of cooks have this one moment where they've tried something from a particular culture and it's just set them on that path. Can you describe for us if there was anything in the French cuisine that made you just go, wow, this is what I want to do?
How can I pick one thing? I think, because do you know what? This is going to sound weird, but I suppose the thing that's coming to mind is goat's cheese salad or a goat's cheese tart. And I think for me as a kid, I was quite open to exploring new flavors and new things. So, and maybe that's just, I don't know where that comes from in my family. So that need to change or get away from Northern Ireland, or even moving then over to France. I loved trying the new things when I came to France. I loved trying new dishes, and they make an amazing goat's cheese salad. So it's just loads of really fresh lettuce with little toasts, so little pieces of baguette that have been toasted with just a slice of goat's cheese on top, and they put those little toasts under the grill so that the goat's cheese gets all nice and bubbly and warm, and then they add those to the dressed salad with sometimes a few little bits of bacon in there. And it is just the most beautiful, fresh, simple, tasty dish. And I remember that as a kid and thinking, wow, just these simple flavors and done so sort of quickly and easily. because in Northern Ireland, they would give you salad, but there would be no dressing on it. You get a piece of dry lettuce and a tomato had no taste. So I couldn't believe that something that's so simple could be so tasty. So yeah, I would say that, and probably the French patisserie for me was
Yeah.
just out of this world. I mean, you can't deny that. I did a patisserie course when I lived in Scotland and learned how to make little choux buns for profiteroles and the really good pastry, although pastry is my nemesis. So on the day it worked really well, but it's still something that is not my best thing. So I'll have to be honest about that. But yes, French pastry is just
I
gorgeous.
think one of our we have not been well, we have been to France, but we went to Strasbourg because
Oh,
we were in
yeah.
Germany, and one of the best cafes we have ever been to in all our lives.
It's like a little hidden
Gem.
gem, like right on top of the shop. So you wouldn't know it was there because it was right on top. You had to go right through the back and then up the stairs.
And it was hidden, but it was the best pastries I have ever
It's like entering another world
tasted.
there.
I
Oh.
hear you on that one. You know what? Something that Charlene and I are involved in, and it's got absolutely nothing to do with what you're doing. So please don't take this the wrong way, but it actually does, because Charlene and I are what we call Death Cafe facilitators. So
Okay.
we run workshops and free workshops called Death Cafe, where we normalize the discussion around death and dying, and if you're looking after someone. But one thing that we talk about is a legacy will. And a
Okay.
legacy will is about your recipes, like how are you writing down your recipes for when you pass away. And while you're talking, I'm like, my mum, she knows my nonnas, because I'm Italian, recipes, but I've never taken interest to learn any of them. So what's going to happen there? Charlene's mum is an excellent cook because Charlene's grandmother was Thai. So even though my mother-in-law was born in Singapore, she brings a lot of Thai flavors. But
Wow.
even though you can cook Thai, probably not to the extent of your mother, what you are creating is not only for this generation, you're creating a legacy, and what we actually talk about in death cafes, but never done that. And you're creating such a powerful legacy for your children and your children's children by doing this. So I applaud you for
I
what
hadn't thought about it like that before.
Yeah.
That's so true. I'll try not to get emotional, but I think it's the legacy of my grandmother. It's going to go right through and right down from her, because it is thanks to her that I think I have this passion. So when you say that, it's really emotional for me, because I hope that I can give my children that same passion that she gave to me. And it's not always easy because, cooking with a young kid, there's flour everywhere, and you just have to be so patient. And she was so patient with me and let me learn and gave me the opportunity to learn. So that legacy is really important. And I'm so glad you mentioned that. Thank you.
No, you're welcome. And you're creating memories with your children. That's what's so beautiful about it. Because I remember, like, I never got involved with the cooking, but I remember my grandmother cooking all the time. And it's so the impact that our grandmothers have on us is quite significant.
And it always seems to be around food, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah,
My
that's so
own
true.
grandma. One of my first food memories was like sharing, just as simple as something as sharing our first nectarine together. That's just like, we never tried something like that before, so it always comes back
When
to
she
food.
came to Australia.
No, in
You went to
England. Yeah, England.
My dad tells the story, a similar story of, because we didn't have, or well, he didn't have like that in Northern Ireland. And it wasn't until he was in France for the first time at the age of 17 that he tried his first peach. And he will always remember that. He tells us a very similar story.
Wow.
It just seems wild, doesn't it? That
Yeah.
to wait till 17.
And you've said throughout it, connecting through food. And the more I reflect on you saying that right at the beginning, like you want to connect through food, our lives, food is so part of who we are and so part of that connection.
It connects us, doesn't it?
And the
'Cause
memories.
everyone loves food, or just about everyone that we know of.
Yeah. So
And I think for the kids, I always talk about this when I talk about how to get kids involved in things like eating. We always talk about trying to get them to eat fruit and veg, or veg especially. It's quite hard thing, you know, to get them to like it. So one of the best ways I've found is to take my son to the market with me and say, right, what looks fun? What would you like to try? You know, and he's looking at all the shapes and colours. And the best example I have, the best one that worked so well was fennel, a big huge bulb of fennel.
Yeah.
I mean, it looks so funny. You know, you've got the white bulb and the
Yeah.
green funny fronds at the top. And he wanted to try that. So I said, okay, let's get one. And we brought it home and we cut it up and he ate some raw. And then I cooked it. You know, I baked a little bit and I also did some in the pan and he tried it all. And I do not think he would have tried that if that had just been me bringing fennel home and saying, right, this is what you're eating for dinner tonight. But because he was involved in the process, he chose it. He was there when we cut it up and looked at it all. He was so excited that he ate it all. It was just, you know, so simple, but it worked.
Yeah.
So
Wow,
try
that's
that if you have.
great.
You're doing a great job, Judith. You really are creating a legacy. So well
Yeah.
done for that.
Thank you.
So we have two main questions that we ask at the end of every podcast, Judith. And one of those is, what advice would you give to someone who wanted to rewrite their life story?
I think, like I said earlier, just try it. Give it a go. What's the worst that can happen? I moved to France and I knew I could go home. If it didn't work, I could go home. I could find another job. It would be okay. Obviously, that's not possible for everybody, but have a think about what it is you'd like to do. And, you know, if you can put things in place, take one step at a time and just try it.
Absolutely. So, Judith, if you were to go back and rewrite your life story now, what would that look like?
Wow, what a question. I think maybe I would just go straight to the cooking thing. I would just like move to Paris whenever I was 17 instead of going to university and just get straight into some amazing Michelin starred restaurant and maybe I would be a top chef right now.
But you're doing that now, and that's what's amazing. Yeah, you've come back to that passion. Judith, it's been wonderful having you on this show, and I've really enjoyed this conversation with you. If you want to know more about Judith and join her membership group or know more about what she does, get some recipes, all her socials are going to be in the show notes, but you can also head over to her website, which is myfoodinfrance.com, and she talks about all her programs on that website. So Judith, thank you so much again.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been really fun.
Now that we've interviewed our guest, join Charlene and I as we recap today's episode. I had a lot of fun in that episode.
How cool is it that she's leaving such a great legacy with her recipes, her food, and creating that library, like you said.
Yeah, and a few things that stuck out for me was, one, she said at the beginning when she was in Scotland, she felt that she had to do what was right.
Yes.
Yeah, so and
by society
standards. She was like, when she's made this food journey, she's like, I'm just going to take my passion and share it. And you can see her love of the culinary experience, food and sharing that food, but also the emotion and the legacy that her grandmother left.
Absolutely. And I love that ode to her grandmother, that she's like really honoring that legacy that she's left and really running with that, sharing it with her children, getting her children involved in picking the vegetables that they're going to try as well.
Yeah, I thought that was a great idea.
Yeah. How many times would you think of getting the children involved in actually picking the food that you want them to try?
Yeah, and I think being in a food market would be such a great experience. Obviously, we have some of them in Australia. We've got those farmers markets that are popping up now everywhere. But yeah, that would be such a cool experience. But I want to go on that tour.
Oh, no. Yeah, that retreat that
she's talking about, that sounds easy. I think one of the key things that Judith really portrayed was just have a go. Yeah. If it doesn't work out, what are you going to lose?
What's the worst thing that can happen, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's one of the big key factors of even just rewriting a life story in any situation, right? Just give it a go.
What are you going to lose?
Thank you for listening to our podcast today. We hope you found it informative and inspiring. If you enjoyed this episode, please like and share it with your friends and family. Also, make sure to visit our website at www.rewriteyourlifestory.com.au to learn more about our mission, products and services. And remember, you have the power to rewrite your own life story. So go out there, face your challenges head on and create the life you've always wanted. We'll see you in the next episode.